Great. Welcome, folks. We're just going to let people get 1 more minute to come on board, and then we'll get started. Nice. All right. All right. Oh, there we go. It's a little slow. All right. Welcome, folks, to the Public Engagement Grants webinar. My name is Erika Shugart. I'm CEO of the American Society for Cell Biology. And during the last round of public engagement grants, I served as a reviewer. I also have a long history of doing science communication projects and public outreach projects. I'm joined by Thea Clark, who is our Director of Communications and Education. Thea serves as the program manager for this project and is the day-to-day contact for the grantees. I'm also joined by Kelly McManus, who's ASCB's accounting manager. Kelly handles all of the finances for the grantees, as well as on our side, handles our finances for this grant. This grant is made possible, and these fundings are made possible by Science Sandbox, which is an initiative of the Simons Foundation, and we really appreciate them supporting this and allowing us to do this effort. All right, so what we're going to do today is review the goals of the program, and then we're going to kind of walk through a proposal and talk about what makes a proposal work. We'll have chances to do questions. If you want to answer a question, you should use the Q&A that's down at the bottom of your screen and type the question in. So first, we're going to talk about the goals of the program. So the goals for the program, and the reason we have this, is one, to help you do your outreach better, to basically increase the capacity and improve your efficacy. To help projects bridge. So we know a lot of the projects that are out there are self-funded. You might be funding it out of your spare change or something from your department, or maybe a campus outreach grant. We've had a number of those successfully go on to get these larger grants, and really help you bridge to those larger federal or foundation grants that will help you even expand your project more. We also want to help members who might be aspiring to leave the bench and go into careers in civic science, where be it policy, science outreach, public engagement. And finally, we really want to have a wider impact. We want to reach out and help the public know more about science. So if you're coming to us, you may have a variety of goals, but we assume that there are some of these goals for your projects. We want you to bring us your bold ideas and let your communities know a lot more about science. We want you to be able to expand existing programs. These programs don't necessarily, this is not a requirement that you already have an existing program, but we do want you to be able to expand those that you may already have going on. And we also want to help you gather experience, data for your projects to be competitive for larger funding sources. And finally, we want you to be able to have salary for this important work. So we know that often the work of public engagement is not necessarily one that is valued with a paycheck, and we want you to be able to be paid so that you're able to dedicate the time for this. All right, so first, who can apply? So here's some pictures of our previous grantees, and this is a wide-ranging group of individuals. We had people who were graduate students at the time they applied, people who were postdocs, people who are faculty members, people from different countries. We had mostly US-based scientists, but we also have scientists up in Canada. All right, so then the mechanism. What does this supply? So it provides up to $35,000 for 1 year of funding. Additionally, you get support in a variety of different ways. You get support from a professional evaluator. This is a person that can help you assess the impact of your program. You get support from a mentor. You'll be able to select a mentor, and we'll give you funds to help you connect. You'll have travel funds to come to the CellBio 2020, which was previously known as the ASCB IMBO meeting. You'll also have travel funds to go to a conference or professional development opportunity of your choice that's related to your program. We saw a variety of ways that people use these fundings last time, sometimes to travel to a conference and sometimes to bring someone in to do trainings. So what we're going to do at this point in time is walk you through the anatomy of a proposal. So we're going to talk about audiences, the project plan, timeline, how you define impacts, and then we're going to get into a little bit more of the nitty-gritty, including how the finances will be handled, if it's a team project, how you explain the different roles, how you write the career goals section, and the outreach experience section, and then the budget. We'll pause in between for a chance for people to ask questions or to kind of take questions. So feel free, again, to press the question and answer at the bottom of your screen and type your questions in there. We are going to be doing all the questions through typing, but put them in at any time, and we're going to sort of take a pause midpoint to answer questions, and then we'll be around to answer questions at the end as well. Okay, so first we're going to start with audience. So how should you define your audience? Well, the first is you should be specific. So for example, things not to do. Don't say that you're going to reach the general public. There is no general public. That's an amorphous mass of billions and billions of people. So that does not exist as an audience. Adults, also much too vague. Elementary students, also much too vague. So just don't do any of that in your proposal. What we would like to see in the proposals that were more successful, or that were successful last time, I should say, did this. They really drilled into their audience. For example, they would define their audience as fourth graders in an after-school program, even going as far as to say, at 2 local schools. Most of our projects last time were school-based, and I think it was because people were able to better define their audiences. But let's say you want to do an internet program and reach folks out in the wide world of the ether. Don't just say I'm going to reach everyone through YouTube, or I'm going to do reach people through my current new favorite social media, TikTok. So you might want to define it more carefully, like teenagers who watch those dance videos on TikTok. I want to reach those. You really want to drill in and think hard about who you're reaching. Additionally, you should have a realistic plan for how to reach them. So again, in the don't do column, don't say you're going to make a viral video. If people knew how to make a viral video, we'd all be making viral videos. We don't know how to make viral videos, so please don't say you're going to do that. Don't say we're going to work with unidentified partners. If you say we're going to go reach fourth graders, please give us a sense of what your school district's like, whether you have a school in mind. Please kind of drill that down. So don't do those things. Do this. Again, we're going to work with schools in which we already have a pilot program. That makes for a very strong proposal. Again, on the internet, we want to really be specific. How are you going to reach certain audiences? We're looking for ways to identify them, whether it's hashtags or challenges, things of that nature. So really think about how you're going to reach them, not just that it's out there and that they're magically going to come to you. You have to remember that most of these projects are basically what we call free choice learning. People choose to come to you unless you're going into a school in which the children are, in a classroom. For the most part, people are going to choose to come to you, and you need to kind of think about how you're going to get them in. And then when you think about your audience, you want to define a need from their perspective. Again, why do they want to come and learn, or why do you want to reach them? So don't do things like the sort of everybody loves science and everybody benefit. Please don't tell me that the public trust in science is declining when there's absolutely no proof that that's occurring. So don't do any of those things. What you should do is really think about your community. So maybe your local elementary school is lacking a science club. Maybe they have teachers that don't have science training and you want to bring science into their classroom. Maybe you want to reach those teens on TikTok because early teens is a time when girls lose interest in science. So you really want to think about those needs and make them specific and sort of drive. And if you're thinking, well, how do I know about my audience? How can I figure this out? Please think about data from your community. So you might have previous projects where you're already reaching out to people, or you might have an audience that you're thinking about in your community. You can find out about them, even go out and talk to them. That's always a great thing to do. You can also cite the literature, and definitely the stronger proposals were one that had, we're not expecting you to be an expert in this literature. We understand that most of you are probably getting into this field. You are not deep experts in science communication, and we're not expecting that. But the proposals that were successful were able to cite some literature that bolstered their cases. And some of the places that you might find literature, there are a number of websites. So there's the CASE website, which is informalscience.com. National Academy Press has several symposia that they run called the Science of Science Communication. You can find those for free at nap.edu. Pew Research Center does tons of surveying, primarily in the United States, well, all in the United States actually, on global trends and science and society. Wellcome Trust does similar things globally. And then of course their journals. So very good. And just there was a question that came in just logistically, are you going to be able to print out slides? We will make the slides and the presentation available after this. So if you're busily writing all of this stuff down, we are going to make this available later on. Okay. All right. So that's a little bit about audience. Now we're going to move on to the project plan. So the project plan is that area where you're going to define what it is you're going to do in the proposal. So you want to start with the background. You want to give us some information. You basically have 5 pages for this project plan. So in the background, we need to understand as reviewers that you're able to execute the project. So again, you do not necessarily have to have quote unquote preliminary data or a preliminary project that you've already been doing, but you probably should have done something related. If you're talking about doing an after school program, we're going to assume that you have worked with elementary school kids and you're going to have to sort of show us that in the past. If you're going to do something on the internet, a blog, an Instagram page, a TikTok page, we would like to know that you have actually taken a picture of something or done some videos and have really, have the ability to actually execute on what you're going to do. Almost, as I mentioned, almost all of the other proposals actually, I think, last time had done similar smaller scale programs. Not necessary, but definitely gives a significant advantage when you're applying to this. I think it also really helped people when they were doing it to think through the details of their proposal. They just, that experience was really valuable. So think through that. And if you're not ready for this funding mechanism, we do, ASCB does offer another funding mechanism. We have campus outreach grants. We do smaller size grants up to about $1,000. They do allow you to do some initial kinds of project development. And so we definitely, encourage you, if you're not ready for the scale, to think about doing those other ones. Several of the grantees last time had experience and had gotten Compass outreach grants in the past. So it was definitely beneficial for them. And then the what, where, how. So as I said, you have about 5 pages for this. You need to explain what you're going to do. You need to explain where you're going to do it. And you need to explain how you're going to do it in that amount of pages. I will just say that we had a few that came in last time that were shorter. Usually those did not have the level of detail they needed. You know, we're not asking for 15 pages. This isn't an NIH level big proposal, but we're pretty much assuming that if you're giving us the level of detail, you're probably filling most of the pages that we're giving you. So really think through, and I encourage folks, when you have your proposal done, hand it to someone that isn't familiar with your project and see if they understand what you're trying to do. They should be able to read it and tell you what you're trying to do, because if you don't have that level of clarity in your proposal, probably is not going to review very well. We definitely got some in that it just wasn't clear. You know, it sounded like maybe there's some interesting ideas, but just really wasn't clear. So we're now going to take a pause and take some questions. And a few have already come in, but as I answer those, I encourage you, if you already have questions about the audience or about the program, that you go ahead and send those in now. So I'm just going to look down here today. Glad people knew about the webinar. So are we taking so the first question is, are we taking applications from international applicants outside of North America? Yes, this is open to all ASCB members worldwide, globally. We would love to see proposals come in from all corners of the earth. So definitely encourage folks that are outside of North America to answer us. And then we have a question a quick question about audience. Are application projects that target a larger audience favored over a smaller audience? So the answer is no. We really want to see a well thought out proposal. We had proposals that came in last time that were for expanding networks into thousands of people, and ones that were really about targeting, single 4th grade classrooms. It is not a volume thing. You don't need to feel pressure that, oh, I need to reach hundreds or thousands of people. If you're reaching a small number of people, but really having a deep impact, that's important to us. So don't feel as if you need to go in and have numbers. Let's see, I've just been working on my proposal online. I just noticed the fields have changed. In fact, the proposal field is missing. Yes. I'm gonna let Thea take that one, because we did make a change. So yeah. Thank you for being on top of this.
Yes, so actually we, because of the review system that we're using, we needed to change from text fields to a document upload for the proposal itself. So if you look at the bottom of the application form, you will see that there is now a place to upload the proposal. And apologies for the switch in gears. We actually had one person who applied and had to completely start over. So hopefully that is not the case with anybody else.
So yes, our apologies on that. We got it launched and realized there were some limitations to the text fields. We wanted you to be able to put in tables and pictures and things like that, which we couldn't do in the text field, we realized afterwards. So great question. Thanks for getting that clarified for us. All right, next question. Could a project that has been up and running in one country be expanded to another country? Would this be something of interest? Definitely something of interest. That sounds completely within the purview of this, so definitely consider applying. So then a question, thanks so much for hosting this webinar. Do proposals need to be specifically about cell biology? They do not need to be specifically about cell biology. We had proposals last time. One of them was about expanding a girls' network in Canada, so not cell biology specific at all. A number of them were a little bit more biology specific, I would say, but that again is not a requirement. What the requirement is if you are a successful grantee, you do need to become an ASCB member. So we do want you to become an ASCB member. So, but we do totally expect to get proposals in that might be a wider range of science than just cell biology. And then there's someone, next question is someone who is a researcher but also has a side hustle, SciComm related business be eligible? Definitely yes, that would be eligible. Again, one of the ones last time, the girls network up in Canada really was, I think, quite a robust already side business. and they used the proposal to expand further and land a sizable grant. So that's also very much a possibility. In fact, we expect we will see proposals where people have been doing stuff and they really are trying to level it up. So those proposals are welcome. Is there any citizenship requirement for international researchers working in the United States? There is no citizenship requirement. You can be on any visa. Do we make concerns about visa? It's all straightforward. Should be good. All right. Thanks for doing this. Will you allow us to work across state lines? For example, we're hoping that Iowa can work with North Carolina. That is certainly welcome. Sounds like there's some interesting projects out here. I'm getting really excited by these questions about what everybody's like, can I do this? And really, we are looking, for you to do things that are going to have an impact for a community. We'd love to see some things that are really innovative and different. We are really excited to see the breadth here. So yes, you can certainly work across state lines. Not a problem at all. All right. So we have a freelance SBIR contract grant writer, or grant contract writer. I'm going to read this one myself here because it's a little bit long. Okay, so this one, there was a question about someone that has been asked to put a poster on scientific work at the ARVO committee that will be held in a few months, but they've asked to do a presentation that's not based on science, and there will be a networking session where we can talk to investors. Can I apply for a grant through your group for this? That does sound a little outside the grant. This is really about reaching different audiences in the public to help raise their understanding of science and their knowledge and excitement about science. It sounds like this could be outside. I would encourage you, because we might need a little bit more information about this, to reach out. At the end of the presentation, we'll have contact information for Thea Clark, and she would be happy to take a look. But that does, the one with the SBIR grant contract writer does sound like that might actually be one that's a little outside the scope of this. Can you indicate again where we can go online and apply for these grants?
So it's the ASCB website, ascb.org, and you go up to the top menu and you'll see grants and awards, and it's in that pull down menu. It's actually on our homepage right now too, front and center.
Very good. Then we have a question about a budget. I'm going to skip the question about the budget right now. We're going to go over budget in a few minutes, and if we don't cover it, we'll come back to it at the end of the presentation. Then we have how many finalists will receive funded grants. That at least, at minimum, 5. We have enough funding to do 5 $35,000 grants. If some of the grants come in smaller, then we would have the ability to do additional grants. Last time we did grant out 7 grantees. So 5 at minimum, could be more, will definitely be less than 10. So somewhere in between those numbers. Do mentors also need to be ASCB members? They do not. They can, in fact, they very well most likely won't be, because they may be people that specialize in the area of science communication you're focused on. So we actually kind of want the mentors in some ways not to be ASCB members, because we want you to be finding mentors outside the community that are helping you with these projects. But they could be members. Is there an experience level requirement? For example, do you have to have a PhD to apply? Is a PhD preferred? So again, we welcome proposals in from a wide range of our members. One of our successful grantees last time was a graduate student at the time that she applied. We've also had people that are full professors apply. So, we welcome, come one, come all. My organization has a part-time science education staff member who would be the lead on the project we're proposing. Should she apply as an individual or through our organization? Again, we're going to get to those questions in a minute about team structures. So I'm going to put that one off. And then there was a question about whether the slides will be available later. They will be for people that need to leave. Another question about team members. We're going to get to that in a few minutes. Let's see. All right, here we go. Back to the application. Does the text field have a max character limit? Half page doesn't help since it is in a text field and not an upload. I'm going to see if he has thoughts on that one. Back to the application. Text field have a max character limit. Right now, it's actually, we've switched it so the proposal, some of the text fields do have character limits.
Yeah, the limits should be indicated on the application itself.
All right, and you
do not need to include the CV from all team members.
Okay, I was going to get to that later. All right, so apparently the limits aren't listed, so we'll look into that, and we'll check about the limits on the words, so we'll get that back on there. And then what percentage of applicants received grants last time? We had
about 31 applicants.
We had 31 applicants and 7 successful ones. You will have to do the math because we will not do the math in our heads, but that strikes me as about, we're doing the math actually. We are doing the math for you. About 22%. We do not know how many people will apply this time. All right, it looks like most of the other questions are kind of things we're going to cover in a few minutes. So we're going to get back to the presentation. And again, keep those questions coming in, and we'll have another question period at the end of this presentation. Okay, so next, proposed impact. So I think this is probably the area of the proposal that we saw the grantees struggle the most with, because it is a concept that I think is a little bit foreign to people that have not done this kind of work. So when you think about making goals, you want to put goals in your proposal. You want to make them, and there's a nice little acronym here, SMART, which stands for specific, measurable, attainable. They should be feasible. They shouldn't be these lofty things like, I am going to change, all of the public is going to love science by the time I get done. You know, keep it attainable. They should be relevant. So again, think about your audience. You want your goal to match your audience. And they should be time bound. These projects are a year, the funding is for a year. So you don't want to do things that are goals that are 10 years out. You can talk about some lofty things at the beginning. You can say, well, I'm inspired to do this because I want to inspire girls to go into science. But then when you're really talking about your project, you want to get down and say, this audience I'm working on, this group of girls are going to change in this way. And so again, I have a little bit of, actually, before I get to that, and you want to think about beyond the numbers. So, to my next slide here. All right, here we go. You should think beyond the numbers. So don't just think I want to reach 10 people. Think about, you might want to increase knowledge. We did see a lot of this. We want people to understand more about cell biology, for example, would be a goal of this type. You might want to change attitudes. I want people to trust scientists more. I want people to be, excited about science. That's attitudinal change. Or you might want to improve skills. I want people to be able to think more critically. I want people to be able to look at things under a microscope. Those are skill building. So these are all the kinds of impacts that you might think about. And then a little do's and don'ts here. So don't do, things that are very just quantifiable. We're going to have 100 views on each one of our videos, for example, if you're doing something on the internet, or we're going to increase the number of women in science. That's seems very quantifiable. I think those kind of goals have a tendency to appeal to our scientist audience, but they really aren't the kind of thing we're looking for. We're really looking for more specific things like this. Looking for middle school girls will be able to identify a scientist role model by the end of the program. That's a great goal. It's very specific. So you can see it's specific, attainable. It's got the time-bound aspects of it. For a more internet version one, we might want to see that viewers are asking relevant questions about science in the comment area. That we're getting in questions around science. We can see that people are engaging around science. So those are the kinds of goals we want to see. And now I'm going to turn it over to Thea Clark, who's going to talk about financial management.
Just keep doing the slides?
Yeah.
Sure. So there are a couple of ways to structure this, and we had a variety of different ways last year with the other funders, with the grantees. So some were individuals, and we actually paid them directly. A lot of people, however, are affiliated with universities and need to involve the university with helping them with the money coming in and money going out. And you need to check if you're with a university or an organization to see how it's going to have to work for you. And if they're going to charge money for helping you with that, those are called indirect costs, and those are capped at 20%, but you will have to put those in the budget. The other thing is team structure. And basically, I think there are a lot of situations where there's more than one person involved in a project, but we need one person to actually be the applicant. And you can list anybody else you're working with. And then, of course, if there's a team or a partnership, we want to know how you're going to work together, and if you've worked together before, and what methods of communication you're going to use, and that kind of thing. What we did find in the last funding round was that people were able to be rather creative in terms of involving their team members. And for example, when you're working with the professional evaluator, you can invite anybody on your team to be involved in those Zoom conferences or phone calls or whatever. Same goes for trainings that can be arranged. And we really will work with you on the, to try to be as flexible as possible about who can use the money for what. So sometimes if you can identify a professional development conference close to you, maybe more than one person can go, things like that. So we want as much bang for the buck for you and your partners as possible.
Great, thank you, Thea. And now I'm going to take back over, this is Erika, and talk a little bit about the career goals and outreach experience section. I don't have too much to say about this, but what we're interested in hearing from you is in the career goals, how will this change you personally? I will say that most of the grantees that we had, all of the grantees that we had last time, were not planning on leaving a science career. They really were planning to stay in a research-based career, and this was something that they really felt was important to enhance that career. So you don't have to feel like you need to write that this is where your next career step is going. We're not expecting to see that at all. In terms of outreach experience, we want to know what are you in or your team's prior experience with public engagement projects. Again, and I think this feeds back to the section where we talked about, are you able to do this? You don't have to be building on a very well-established project, but we do assume that you're going to come in with some experience, that you have an idea of what you're doing and that you're building upon that. It may be that you've worked with others and you've always been someone that's assisted and now you're ready to lead. That's great. It may be that you're taking a project and expanding it. There are lots of options here. So we're not really married to a particular path, but we do want to understand what that background is. It gives us a better sense of whether the projects are going to be successful, which is our ultimate end goal, is to really have more of you be able to reach out to your communities. And now budget. So the budgets do need to fall between 10K and 35K US dollars. And this includes the indirect costs that Thea mentioned earlier. So if you are using up to the 20%, that's going to cut in. So, at 10K, that's going to be $2,000 of that 10K would be indirect costs if you're at the full capped 20% cost. So keep that in mind when you're budgeting. And I will say that we had projects that span the range of that budget last time, which is why we were able to give 7 instead of just 5. There is no advantage to keeping it cheap, and there is no real incentive to making it stretched all the way out. What we want to see is really a well thought out budget. I will say some of the things that were really appreciated by the reviewer committee is there was one project that came in where they really thought about the fact that they were trying to reach an audience that was low income and that they needed to provide food. They needed to have snacks for the kids. When they brought the parents in, they needed to have a meal, that would be a big appeal. So there are costs like that are really thoughtful costs that are important that we want to see. But don't just feel like you have to spend it out to the 35K. You don't. We don't expect to see that either. In fact, quite a few came in under that budget. Subcontracts are just fine. So if are you working with a third party to help you out? Maybe there is someone that is a partner. We've seen this in previous grants. There was a scientist that was working with a art group partner, and it is fine to pay subcontracts through this mechanism. We do ask you to do your research and try to be as specific and realistic as possible. The people that are reviewing these grants are all experienced in science communication. We have a pretty good idea of what things cost and the range things cost, and so we do want to see realistic kinds of costs in there. So price it out, try to be as realistic and close as possible, but don't shortchange yourself. Make sure you're being realistic, as I said, and know that if you are successful, there will be a midpoint account to check that budgets are on track. We had actually a number of people underspending this last time. We really do want you to spend the money that we give you, so there will be a point in which we check in. All right, and so that brings us to the end of our formal presentation today, but we want to take your questions. We want to clarify things. So I see that we have a few more. Looks like we just answered the budget question. I'm just looking here. All right, so just to go back through, and I do encourage you to keep the questions coming in. So we did have a question about the award, when the money needs to be spent. I ask approximately how much is the budget for this year. I'm trying to see how competitive the awards will be. So we have received funding from Science Sandbox for 1 year. So this is a single funding round opportunity right now. We do not know that we will have continuity for this in the future. So now is the time to get in, and the proposals are for 1 year. So that's kind of where it is, and we don't know what future years will hold. We certainly hope that we will continue to get funding in and we'll be able to continue this program, but right now it is a single round grant to us. I hope that answers your question, Patrick. All right, so then from Camille, we have my organization has a part-time science education staff member who would be the lead on the project we're proposing. Should she apply as an individual or through our organization? So hopefully, this was one that came in a little bit earlier. Hopefully, Camille, that we answered that with both the team project and the questions about the indirect. You really are going to have to kind of make that determination. If you're working within an organization, then probably you're going to have to apply through that organization. Just looking, given that you're working with a part-time science education staff member, it sort of sounds like you're working within an organization. So likely that would be. But again, I encourage you to talk to your organization and talk to us. We'll have the contact information in a few minutes for Thea. We are happy to field questions from proposal writers as it comes in. All right, should I include the CV from all team members? You do not need to do that. If partnered with another larger international research association who gives out research-related grants but not outreach grants, would this be a project of interest and eligible? We don't have a limitation on the types of organizations that can apply. So even though you have a granting organization, that would be within the realm of this. Again, we're looking for people that are ASCB members, but it would be eligible. Okay, then Cassandra asks, does the lead on the project need to be a member of the ASCB, or would another member being a member suffice? So the lead on the project does need to be an ASCB member.
Yes.
When they apply or when they get
So
the grant?
right now, it's set up for when you apply, you're an ASCB member.
All right, thank you for that reminder, Thea. So yes, the lead on the project needs to be the ASCB member. We consider it, well, it does not bias us, but we're certainly happy to see other people as members too. But it's important that the lead be the member. If one plans to work with middle school students, will the funding have to go through the school? So that's the question that came in. No, the funding doesn't have to go through the school. It really depends on the structure of your school system. Here we had a number of projects that were working in the school, in the elementary schools or the local school districts, and the money was going through the university or the money was going to individuals. So it does not have to go through the school. But again, you're going to need to do your research to, if that school partnership requires that somehow money goes to the school, you should know that and work that out. That's a question you're going to need to ask your schools. All right, question from Patrick. I've served as a research mentor to students on projects designed by other individuals. Are these experiences valid and or taken into account during the review process? So what I'm not entirely sure, I will be honest with that question. I think because there are a lot of sort of what ifs involved in that question. What I would say is what we're looking for in terms of the relevant experience when we're asking for that is what kind of projects have you done with public audiences, out in your community. So that would be what we're looking for there. Hopefully that helps. Do we need to do research on the effectiveness of the program? Yes, you do. And that is why we are partnering you with a professional evaluator. So for those that are successful, you will sit down and I think what I heard from the current grantees was this was the part of other than the money, this was the part that had the greatest impact for them. Because they were able to sit down with a professional that does the kind of research to measure impact on work like this. And they were able to work through, really refining their goals. We've asked for impact, we've asked for goals here, but you will go through a process where you refine it with the evaluator, and then they will help you to build the tools to measure how effective you've been. So it's definitely part of the project, but we don't expect you to come in with a really detailed, thought out plan. We know this is an area that a lot of people don't have deep experience on, and that they need to, get help, which is why the access to the professional evaluator is part of this program. Great question. All right. So Beth asked, you mentioned travel to the ASCB meeting. Does that have to be worked into our budget as well? That is a separate item. It does not have to be your budget. So your budget should be the project. Separate from the budget, you will get funds for interaction with your mentor, for travel to the ASCB meeting, and for travel to a meeting in a science communication area and or professional development in that area. Those items do not need to be budgeted.
Just to clarify, we no longer have money for visiting your mentor. We assume that will be done virtually.
Great. Thank you for that clarification. Okay. And then another question about finances. How should we explain the handling of finances? It says half-page limit, so I'm curious what is needed. Basically, we need to know, I think it particularly comes up if you're working through an organization, and Thea, maybe you could say a little bit more about what you're looking to know about.
Actually,
Kelly.
So yes, if you're going through your organization, are they going to want 20%? Are they going to ask for 10%? What is there going to be an indirect? If you're doing it yourself, how are you going to manage are you going to account for the money? And just a brief description of your process. Don't say I'm going to put it under my pillow, pay people by cash, but just mention briefly that your record keeping, that maybe that you have a little experience in this, and that you'll take proper measures to keep things with good controls.
All right. So yeah, and again, it's a short thing because we don't expect this to be an exhaustive answer.
Yeah.
Okay. Then Jane asks, you have talked about academic scientists. I spent half my science career in academia and half in the industry sector, pharma, and now recently retired. Is that okay? Yes. Sorry if I came across as with any sort of particular bias towards academic scientists. We happen to have a lot of academic scientists in ASCB, so I know I'm probably talking to a lot of people from that sector, but we are certainly sector neutral. We are happy to have people come in from industry and pharma, happy to have people that are retired. You do have to be an ASCB member, that being the critical component here, but we welcome people with a number of different backgrounds or employers. Does the project have to last an entire year, or can it span a shorter time period?
I would say it could span a shorter time period. What we're really looking at in this time frame is sort of the 2 academic semesters, more or less, for many, many people who are doing this. But if your project is shorter, I think that's fine.
Okay. All right, next question. Question about salary support. So I'm going to field this over to Kelly or Thea. Could you clarify whether we should add some salary support for the applicant? For example, I'm a professor at a small school and I'm eager to do the project for free and pay student participants. But I'm new to this kind of thing and wonder whether I can/should include some money, pay myself.
You certainly can from our end, and I think you would want to check with your university because they may have limitations on that. If you were going to include salary support, you probably need to clear that through them. On our end, it's optional. You don't need to, but it's allowable.
Great, thank you. Okay, all right, so we have another specific question here. My company has been developing a new way of testing our eyes using the internet platform. Can we use funding from you to create the videos and other digital communication methods available through social media to try to convince people to get their eyes tested by our new technology by explaining the novelties of our process? What I would say is these grants are really not appropriately used for advertising or sales purposes. And I do not, you're welcome to put in a proposal, but I would say it's really much more about public engagement, and I'm not quite sure how it will review if it really is clear that this is really more about selling a product. I think that may not be as competitive because it really is not necessarily in the nature of what we're doing here. This isn't supposed to be about marketing. It's really supposed to be public engagement, public outreach, and science communication. All right. Question, do you already have to be an ASCB member in order to apply?
Yes, you do.
Yes, you do. Very affordable, lots of other benefits. Do encourage you to check that out and encourage you to be a member. And then another question about travel and the budget. I think we already answered this. The travel to the conference is outside of the budget. You don't need to budget that within your 10K to 35K. And then a question about who can be a member of ASCB. Can any PhD scientist become a member of ASCB, or do they need to be in biology specifically? So we do have some requirements that people are related to cell biology. That's a pretty broad field. There's a lot of scientists with a wide range of different kinds of science that participate in cell biology. So that is what I would say to that. Is there a preference for a proposal that is a series of events versus a one-time event, say a festival? And no, there's really, we are eager to see, a wide range of different kinds of ideas that can come in. And we had, in the last round, a range of different kinds of events, some of that were repeating and some of which were much more one-off or maybe two-off kinds of things. So if it's a good, strong idea, we want to see it. So an assessment plan does not have to be included within the proposal. If you're talking about like an evaluation plan and how you plan to evaluate, you do not need to go into detail in your proposal about how you would ask questions, what your survey techniques would be, and things like that. You do, though, really have to be clear about those goals and those impacts, which is a component of assessment. We want to know, what your end goal is, but you don't need to go into depth about how you plan to measure it. I will say that if you have some ideas, it doesn't hurt to sort of mention that, we'll be able to see change because people are going to be more excited or they're going to do drawings or things like that, but it isn't something that you need to go into depth, and we're not really expecting that. How much detail do you need to go into in terms of sustainability? We don't really have a separate sustainability question. Certainly, if you indicate that you're thinking about that, that's very appreciated by the reviewers. A number of people came in and this is kind of, we do view it as a bridge grant, so our hope is that it could be sustained because you're going to go out and get additional funding. We don't expect you to write sustainability programs. I mean, it's 1 year of funding. We're not expecting you to then explain how you sustain it for the rest of time or anything like that. All right, can a PI be our mentor, or do we need to have someone outside of our field in our lab? A PI can certainly be your mentor. That would be fine. What we're looking for with the mentors is someone that has expertise in the science communication area that you're doing. So we expect that most of our people that are applying are going to have expertise in science, but may not have deep expertise in the areas of public outreach, public engagement, science communication. So we expect that the mentor will have some background. There are a number of PIs out there that have very deep background in this. A number of our members that have done a tremendous amount of work in science outreach and would be, appropriate. But I think that's what you want to think about with the mentors. You really are trying to get someone that can help you in this area that you may not know much about.
And let me just add on to that, because this came up when we were doing feedback with our past grantees. And I think the main idea behind a mentor is twofold. One is a sounding board for your idea and proposal going forward, and if they have ways to suggest to make it better. And then secondly, as somebody who can introduce you to others in the field, potentially. Networking.
Yes, that is very important. The networking component is really important. Great point. Thank you, Thea. Then we have a question about what level of detail is necessary. If planning a fair, does each individual interactive activity need to be explained? And what I would say is, you have 5 pages. Use them
Wisely.
Use them wisely. I can't, I just can't answer that question.
I think, to me, that sounds a little too detailed. I think you'd want to try and lump different things together so that we'd have a sense of what the whole fair would look like, but not to that level of detail, perhaps.
But probably they talk about, we're going to cover these topics or something. Yeah, but you got 5 pages. There's a lot to cover. You can decide the level of detail. We assume you're pretty much going to fill those 5 pages. I'll just emphasize that again. It's pretty hard to get the level of detail we want if you're doing something that's less. And then a very nice question, how can we acknowledge the society? So, yeah.
Well, I mean, we ask people to, if you are going to be presenting data someplace, we ask that you acknowledge the ASCB as well as Science Sandbox very specifically, and we will put all that information into an agreement letter later.
And then we have a question, it goes back to the teams. If we were to be funded, would the whole team be given funding to go to a conference or only the lead?
It's really the lead is going to be going to a conference, but as I mentioned, in some cases it might be possible to get a second member, in one other team member, but it's primarily for one person.
Great. So next question, what if you have a product that is an outreach related product and the goal is to test it with a new audience? Would this be of interest? Would it be desirable to see how the product could be commercialized or expanded beyond the scope of ASCB grants? It's hard for me to say, there's a lot of what ifs there. So I'm just not sure. You might want to reach out to Thea more specifically about that one. Yeah,
please email me more specifically and I'll respond to you individually.
All right. We're getting towards the end of our questions. So just to let you know, we have about 3 more questions. So if you have any last questions, this is probably your chance to kind of type them in. So, never mind. We got a few more questions. All right. So Jane, so please outline the deadline dates. I expect they're on the website as well. Thank you. And I'm going to look at the...
Yep. So the application deadline is March 31st. And we will be reviewing applications in the month of April and then preparing letters by mid-May, and then projects can start as early as June 1.
Okay, good. And that's something we probably should have had in this webinar. So
well,
good question.
All of this is on the website.
Great. All right, and then another question. If one plans to engage college students, teachers, and use some of this money to compensate for their time, what kind of tax records, et cetera, will we need to generate? Kelly, can you help us with that one?
Yes. So if you're paying someone as a contractor and you pay them, if you're going to pay them $600 or more, the IRS does require that you provide them with a 1099 form for their taxes at the end of the calendar year. So you would need to collect a W-9 form from them, and so you probably would need some kind of accounting system, QuickBooks. If you have specific questions, you probably need advice from an accountant, or you can reach out to us if you're not sure how you're going to handle it.
Great. Thank you, Kelly. All right. Can you provide an example of the funding mechanisms / sources that your grant can be a bridge to? Sure. So I think that, there are some federal sources. So if you are doing an in-school project, for example, NIH has their Science Education Partnership Award program. It's got the acronym SEPA, would be one example. Another example is Simon Foundation. Sandbox Science funds a number of projects like the BioBus up in New York City that brings a mobile lab out to schools in inner city New York, for example, as one project. So that would be another foundation source. A couple, up in Canada, we had successful grantee for this program that landed a successful grant from, what was the name of
It was
the?
the Canadian government, actually.
Yeah.
And then we also had one grantee who has applied for an NSF grant as a result of her work. So one of the things that we're planning to do this year with our past grantees and our next grantees is to have Simon's Foundation folks do a webinar to talk about some possible funding sources.
Yeah, we definitely would love to see, you know, we've had some exciting projects come in so far, and I anticipate that we will with this round as well. And we would definitely love to see them be able to continue to and grow beyond our mechanism. And let's see. So let's see, perhaps this was already answered, but does the financial support / salary of the mentor and evaluator need to be provided with the grant, or are these set costs and resources that will be provided? So the mentor is an unpaid position. We will not be paying any salary for the mentor. This is something that people are doing as a service to the wider world. And the evaluator is paid separately. We cover that through our grant from Simon. So you do not need to worry about including those costs. Their phone number for the ASCB contact person. I will be posting an email address in just a few minutes when we reach the end of the questions for the. Oh, and then we had a continuation question, ... and thus do not need to be enumerated with the grant budget. I believe that was a continuation of the evaluator question, and that is correct. You do not need to enumerate that in your grant budget. And then last question we have here, do you tend to see former Compass grant awardees applying for this grant? Does it help if you were awarded before? We did see a number of Compass grant awardees applying for the grant last time. And what I would say is, in reflection, because a number of them had done projects at smaller scale, they wrote stronger proposals. They had the experience to be able to write specifically about their audience. And so we did see some strong proposals from our Compass, previous Compass awardees. So, but there's no, we had people that did not have Compass grants previously also, they were also successful. So that what I would say is it's great. I'm thrilled if you've gotten a Compass grant, and it could very well help you because you have some more experience. It's not a requirement, but it does sort of help. And what I've seen, we did get another bonus question in there while I was answering that one. Is it possible to have co-leads?
No, not really. There's one lead, but you just put it in as a partnership. So
right.
one person has to apply, but you can have a
okay.
partner.
You can have your team be one other person. But yeah, we do need a single lead on this, but thanks for the questions. All right, well, that is the last question we have. So we really do appreciate all of you taking the time. I was really excited to see all of you on the call. Can't wait to see what you're going to come up with. Very excited to read the proposals. And again, just going to click over here. If you do have additional questions, Thea Clark has been on the call as our program manager. That is her contact information, and you are welcome to reach out individually to her. We want to help you be successful, and so she is standing by.
Please do reach out. We want everybody to have as great an application as possible. So Kelly and I will both be helpful, but reach out to me.
And so I'd like to thank both Kelly and Thea for joining me on the call. I'd like to thank all of you for your great questions. It's clear that a number of you are thinking really deeply about this, and I wish you all the best. Thank you so much.